welcome back to Success Made Simple. In the last module, we kind of gave an introduction to talk about these. Let me scroll this over. Whoops. To talk about these 6 things that are necessary if you want to achieve success. If you haven't watched that video, please go back and watch the introduction. It's super important. It'll help you make sense of what we're going to talk about in these upcoming modules, including this one right here and right now. So with all that being said, let's hop right into the very first attribute you need if you want to be successful. And that first thing is, let me actually just scroll over here. Very first thing is you need a vision. Now, what exactly is a vision? For a lot of people, they might consider a vision to be similar to a goal. And it is to a degree similar to a goal. But the difference between a goal and a vision is that a vision is sort of the broader picture of what you want out of life, whereas a goal is sort of the stepping stones that get you to that vision. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'll share a story with you that'll help kind of articulate this, or I guess illustrate this point a little bit better. If you're watching this right now and you haven't read this book, I highly recommend as homework to read the book Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the reason why I suggest reading this book, and by the way, if you're someone who doesn't like reading too much, I totally get that. Some people aren't the best readers, or some people don't really embody information well when they have to read it. Last time I checked on Netflix, there's kind of a mini documentary series called just Arnold. If you just type in Arnold on Netflix, it's called Arnold. And it's about Arnold Schwarzenegger. It kind of takes the book Total Recall, and it's him sharing stories about different kind of decades throughout his life. He shares stories about him when he was born and his childhood, and how his childhood led him to bodybuilding, and how bodybuilding led to him being a movie star, and how him being a movie star led to him being a politician, and et cetera, how he became a businessman, all that stuff. Great documentary. The book is much better because the book is, 1, it's longer, 2, it's a lot more detailed. It goes deeper into every single attribute of his life. And if you're watching this and you don't know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is, that's fascinating to me. But if you're unfamiliar with him, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. I think he won Mr. Olympia about 6 times. Mr. Olympia is kind of the highest achievement you can reach in the bodybuilding world, especially at that time. He went on to be one of the most famous, top paid movie stars around the entire world. Started Terminator, starting all kinds of movies. A lot of famous movies that to this day, Predator, famous movies that to this day are still well known. Like the brand of those movies are well known. And then once he finished that, he went on to become the governor of California. And just something that I learned from the book that I thought was fascinating that I want to share with you. If you weren't familiar with this, California's GDP is bigger than most countries on the planet. And governor, if you aren't familiar, is a step down. It's basically a step down from president. Like when it comes to politicians, president is probably the highest you can go as far as like overall power and overall influence. Governor is like the next step down, and governor is kind of consider it the president of an entire state. The reason why he couldn't become president, he said in the book Total Recall, he wanted to be president, but he couldn't, because in order for you to be a president in the United States of America, you have to be born in the United States of America, which Arnold Schwarzenegger was not. So that's the only reason why he had become president. Me personally, I think had he been born in the United States, or if that rule didn't exist, he would have become president of the United States at some point. Just because he was so well loved, so well connected, had a great reputation for the most part. But the reason why I bring him up, and the reason why I bring him up as we're talking about this idea of vision, is because if there's anyone that I can think of throughout all of history that had a big vision, that lived up to the vision they had of themselves or for themselves, it would be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Big reason why I really recommend reading the book. And I don't want to go super like in depth and go too deep into Arnold Schwarzenegger's whole life, but the vision he had for himself was initially to become one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. And because he had that kind of overarching vision for himself, he did everything he could to achieve that outcome. He'd spend endless time training at the gym. There's one story that was kind of interesting from his book. At one point, he was so well known in Austria as a bodybuilder that he said people would just kind of give him opportunities. People would like support him in his goals because, and this is kind of his way of putting it, it was almost like they were feeding into his own goal. Like they were sharing a piece of the outcome with him. And he said there'd be times where he'd be bodybuilding and his neighbors would offer him extra eggs because they figured he'd probably need extra protein. Other people would offer him different places to crash at their house or give him trips to different competitions, like low-level competitions that were local that he might have. People wanted to like really have a part in seeing his vision play out the way he wanted it to play out. And he kind of created opportunities for himself that way. There was one story in particular where he was so famous locally, kind of in Austria, where someone, I don't know if the person was in like the UK or London or whatever, or if they were in Austria, doesn't matter where they were, but they had a pretty famous gym and they offered Arnold Schwarzenegger a position at this gym as a personal trainer. And at one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger just turned it down. And to kind of give context, this training position would have paid at that time 6 figures. So we're talking about 6 figures back in like, I don't know when Arnold was born, like the 50s or whatever, 60s, or I don't know. But as you can imagine, due to inflation, the 6 figures back then would be like millions of dollars today, or at least like high 6 figures by today's standards. Just to kind of give you an idea of what Arnold was willing to turn down while in pursuit of his goals. And so that's what a vision is. A vision is sort of a broad view, a broad yet specific view of the things you want. Now, when I say broad yet specific, what do I mean by this? It's broad in the sense that it's sort of all-encompassing. So when you have a vision for yourself, a good vision for yourself, the way I see it is you know exactly what you want when it comes to your health, your finances, and your personal relationships. Those 3 attributes. Understanding exactly what you want out of those 3 attributes, those 3 categories, or the way I like to call it, those 3 pillars, that is how you define your vision. And the reason why I think this is step number 1, like you need to have this first, is because there's been plenty of people I've encountered, plenty of people who come to Productivity Accelerator seeking help, seeking to improve their lives. And one of the first questions I ask people is, what are your goals? Most people do not have concrete goals in their life. Most people, when you ask them what their goals are, they're very vague goals. Oh, I want to improve. I want to get better. I don't want to struggle. These things mean nothing. In order for you to have a goal worth pursuing, you need to have a concrete objective vision. You need to have an idea, and you need to have kind of like an actual photograph of the future you want for yourself. And what you do is you reverse engineer the process to get there. Arnold Schwarzenegger's vision for himself was to be wealthy. Initially, he wanted to be one of the best bodybuilders in the entire planet, like the best bodybuilder in the entire planet. He had a specific view in his mind of the physique he wanted. I think there's one story in the book where he says, often throughout the day, he would sort of see himself in his own mind standing on stage after winning a large bodybuilding contest with his arms out, with the crowd applauding him, the crowd is cheering him. He said he had that vision over and over and over again, and he wanted that to be true above all else. And eventually it did become true. But that's what a vision does. It's something that you see in your head. It's a future version of yourself that seems crystal clear within your head that you're working towards, and you reverse engineer that process to get there. And when you reverse engineer that process, that the goals are the product of you reverse engineering your vision. Does that make sense? So I want to just make sure you understand this point. All of these things here, they don't matter if you don't have a concrete vision. And the reason why most people fail to achieve success is because they do not have a vision. Now, if you have any questions about this, as always, feel free to message me and I'll try to explain this more. But hopefully you get the idea of this concept of having a vision, and hopefully you take the time to create a vision for yourself. Like I mentioned, if you want to have like concrete action steps, after this module, what I recommend you do before you move on to the next one, what I highly recommend you do, take 20 to 45 minutes to an hour plus if you need to, and just sit there with a piece of paper and just write out what your ideal lifestyle looks like 50 years from now, specifically 50 years from now. Start at 50, and I want you to really consider, how do you want your health to look like? Every attribute of health, by the way. When I say every attribute of health, what I'm talking about is, how do you want your physique to look? How do you want your mental health to look? How do you want your intelligence to be like? That's part of mental health. Your intelligence, your comprehension, how you process the world around you. These things all matter. So how do you want to feel every single day? Feel from a physical aspect, but also feel from just an emotional aspect. Emotional health is part of your overall health. Mental, emotional, physical. These things are all health. Think about all of them. And think about exactly how you want to feel, how you want to think, how you want to look. That's health. Finances. How much money do you want to have? How many assets would you like to obtain, or would you like to be in control of? If you want to have a business, what does that business look like? How much money are you generating from that business? How often do you work on the business? Like, really sit there and think about every single component of the life you want to live. Relationships. What do you want your relationships to look like? Do you want to be married? Do you want to be single? Do you want to have high quality friends? Do you not care about friends, but you want lots of acquaintances? What do you want to do with those friends or acquaintances? Do you want to have lots of parties? Do you want to travel a lot? Go very deep. And that's what I'm saying. Take like 30 minutes at least, but really like 45 minutes, an hour, more than an hour if you really need to, and go through every single one of these attributes. Be crystal clear. Be extremely specific. A lot of people are very vague. A lot of people don't want to be specific because specificity takes a lot of brain power. And I'm not saying it to be rude or insulting, but it's the truth. When things take a lot of energy and requires a lot of mental effort to do something, we tend to stray away from it because as humans, we seek the path of least resistance. Push through that. If you want to be successful, if you want to have an ideal lifestyle, you got to know what the ideal lifestyle is. I've said to people before, a vision is like a treasure map. It's like being a pirate looking for treasure. If you don't have a treasure map and you don't even know what treasure you're looking for, you're just wandering. You're just a sailor wandering on the seas. You're not going to go anywhere in particular. Maybe every once in a while you'll stumble upon an island or some like piece of land that's interesting or cool, but you'll never achieve your goal, which is finding the treasure. So again, do that exercise. That's going to be your action steps for this module if you want to achieve or find your ideal vision. Now, hopefully this all made sense. In the next video, we're going to be talking about the cost of unsuccess. Do the action steps. And until then, hope to see you in the next module. Peace out. Bye.